my face in comic books, cause I don't wanna look at nothing. This world's too much. I swallowed all I could.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Trade Talk. I'm your host, Niko, and this is episode 33, the Late Tapes Volume 9. That's right, we're almost to the end here, guys. We got about one more Late Tapes episode that is going to release very soon, and then we're going to be right back on track, caught up, and releasing weekly, hopefully, again. So thanks for seeing this through. If you guys have checked into these episodes as I was working through my backlog of not recording any episodes for the first couple months of the new year here, now I've basically caught up to the point where I'm reading new material as well that's been coming out. And caught up on all the books. I talked about basically everything I had read during that period of time. And look forward to checking back in with us if you were a new listener during this period of time, and we'll be releasing episodes weekly once again. All right, so I got 3 books to talk about today. First up, we got John Constantine, Hellblazer, Volume 22. Now, these are the they're not really that new. They've been doing them for a few years now. These kind of more of the rebranded, like renumbering of DC collecting all of the Hellblazer issues that Vertigo released previously. They had a bunch of volumes that are kind of out of print now, like the older ones, where they didn't really number them for whatever reason. They would just let you know like what issues they collected. They had the branding of the creative teams on them, but for whatever fucking reason, I don't know why they did it this way. They just didn't number those older ones, really. So they've been kind of recollecting all of that material and coming out with these like fat paperbacks from DC, and they usually retail like this one for about $30. And they'll collect anywhere from, usually it's about like 15 or 16 issues usually per volume. Yeah, so you got a few hundred pages of Hellblazer here, each one, and I've been buying every one. I have all 22 volumes. This is the newest volume that just came out. At this point, we're in the Peter Milligan written era of Hellblazer, and this actually is going to see us through to the end. DC, please don't cancel this line like you've been known to do with other things, because at this point now with Peter Milligan's run, this will see us through to the end of the Hellblazer Vertigo series proper before they canceled it at, I think, issue 300, which was the last one years ago. So I would like to own all of Hellblazer in these paperback formats on my shelf. So please don't cancel the line. That's me saying that to DC. So, yeah, which, I know they won't listen to this, but, more like a prayer. So this collected issues 250 to 260, as well as the 5-issue Chaz miniseries. And here's the thing with Hellblazer. Again, it's one of those books that you could say if you've read one, you've read them all, because there's a lot of similarity in theme and the type of character he is and what he decides to do and the things that are going on, just the way he reacts and the way he is. And, how it just there's always a few things you can tend to rely on for a Hellblazer story. Like someone else is going to get fucked over that's in his circle, whether they be a friend or family or loved one. Like someone's going to get dragged in as a result of John Constantine being involved in some sort of play with demons or what have you, and which that always kind of happens, right? It's unavoidable. It happens in this volume. His best friend Chaz, time to time, has gotten fucked over as well. Though at this point he's still living, at least, while others haven't been so lucky, but he's been close to dying, right? So that's like an ongoing theme of these Hellblazer Vertigo series, right? And he's just a shitty person, like, and whether he means to or not, he usually and people know that about him at this point in time. They try to stay away. They would rather not get involved in something in John Constantine's life, but sometimes they don't have a choice, right? Just knowing him is a danger to them, and sometimes there's some weird occurrences that are happening around England or wherever, London or wherever the hell he is, or if he travels a lot in these books as well. So I think actually during the Peter Milligan run, he's actually going to go to India, I believe, is actually part of it at some point. I think that's going to be coming up. So we got about 40 issues more to go. Maybe about another 3 volumes with like other miniseries that were coming out around this time. Sometimes they throw in some other extra things, like the Chaz miniseries in this one. So I don't know if the next volume 23 has been solicited as of yet. It may have been. I may have ordered it. I'm just waiting. I just really hope they make it to the end because this has been a wonderful series. And if you never read it and you're familiar maybe with the character on TV, although I've heard that first season that got canceled and he went into Legends of Tomorrow, the DC stuff with that Constantine show, I heard it was well received after the fact. Maybe they just didn't have the audience for it, but I heard it was good. Although even like from the initial time that I saw it, his jacket just didn't look right. It was clean, like short, and he kind of just looked a little bit too proper for me. And like, I don't know how much of a dirty, like these ones, the thing too, is that these are Vertigo. So there's, the swearing in these. He's not like a clean cut Constantine. He's always usually wearing a filthy ass fucking jacket, you know what I mean? A coat, like, there's all kinds of crazy shit that happens in these. These are because Vertigo, was the mature line of comics, right? And then after this concluded, they've been having Constantine until very recently, actually, because I believe that's a Black Label book, and it may be following in the footsteps again of the Vertigo series, which is that's awesome. I'm waiting till the first volume comes out. The current series is apparently very good, written by Cy Spurrier. But there was like watered down versions that came out after that. There was a few series that came out from DC Comics proper where he was kind of more introduced back into like the DC universe, and it just was never the same, I feel, since they made that change. But this is the start of Peter Milligan's run, it's pretty good. And let me just go over some of the artists, because that's always a big treat for these great artists throughout this whole series. From the start, really, you get always great artists in here. So in this one, there's no exception. You got Giuseppe Camicoli, Stefano Landini, Goran Suzuka, Rodney Ramos, Simon Bisley's in here. I mean, some of these guys just appeared in, like, there was like an oversized annual or like anniversary issue type thing, I think, in one of these. And there was like a lot of these guest artists on it. I think it was issue 250, actually. Sean Phillips, Raphael Grandpa, David Lloyd, Eddie Campbell. Like, this is crazy, these artists. Yeah, it was the Hellblazer Holiday Special, which was from Hellblazer issue 250. So in that one, you got like Raphael Grandpa, and you got David Lloyd and stuff like that. You got like a lot of these artists that have also may have worked on the character in the past or had never done so. And Bisley had an issue later on in this thing. Like, some of these artists, you don't even see them do that much work. Maybe were more current at the time that these came out, but definitely not now. And then Peter Milligan wrote all like the main issues of the series, but then I guess in that issue 250, the holiday special, you had other writers, Simon Oliver, Dave Gibbons. Actually, Simon Oliver wrote the Chaz miniseries. Dave Gibbons, Brian Azzarello, China Melville, Jamie Delano. Jamie Delano, who's a long-time Hellblazer writer as well from back in the day. They all wrote short stories in the holiday special. The Chaz miniseries at the end was really good too, I gotta say. I mean, John did pop up in it at some point. Although, like, you saw scenes of him every issue, but most of the time he was trying to make his way to Chaz from like another country so he can help him, but some stuff delayed him as a result of that, and like he still, even so, he tried to help him in any way he could, at least give him advice, talking to him over the phone as he dealt with his own issues back home. So that was interesting. I liked that miniseries. And then throughout, the main storyline is something where John Constantine had fallen in love with somebody, and they were having issues. She wasn't like was going to basically break it off with him. And during this period of time, like, she was like a doctor or a nurse or something, I think. And he has like this weird like scab, this like weird like scab appears on his chest, and he says that he thinks it may have been from like the demon blood that was put in him before, and it's having some sort of reaction. And then meanwhile, he has to go see like a demon in order to get some stuff like this to soothe it, like, and actually take the scab stuff off. And he's using some like dead skin and like dipping it and rubbing it all over himself, and it seems to be helping temporarily, but then it just kind of continues to come back worse. And it's like this scab shit that like falls off, like it actually piles off like dead skin flakes, like the scab. So it's kind of really gross. And then from there, he has some sort of dependency on having to go to this demon, and that's the way they kind of wanted it. And then he even goes to the demon and asks for basically something so this girl would want to stay with him, like stay in love with him. And then he's basically has some sort of love spell that backfires, and actually other people in his life, including the demon, basically are coming to him that have a thing for him. And that causes all kinds of issues for the women in his life currently, that the demon kind of takes a liking to him all of a sudden as well. And then, yeah, maybe he didn't get that from that demon then, unless it like somehow backfired, because I can't recall why, like... It may have been something actually he came up with. I don't think this... Yeah, it may have been something he came up with, unless I'm just forgetting. But for whatever reason, the demon that he was getting that shit from, that was using him as... like, that he was depending on for this scab stuff, that she basically used as a way to kind of get closer to him and kind of get him, like, owing her... she ends up like also like falling in love with them or something like that. So she ends up going after like the women in his life around him as well too. And like I previously mentioned, people in his life that are around him are in danger as a result of that. And from there, it kind of just goes on, and the you know, the plot thickens, and the story develops into something more so than that. And the Chaz miniseries is really enjoyable. So yeah, I don't want to spoil like kind of what happened from there, but that is like the basic setup of this story. But like I said, if you've read some of the old Hellblazer Vertigo series, this feels very in line with it. I'm not always a fan of what Peter Milligan does. Some things I think he does very well. Some others, I don't like them that as much. This is good. He's definitely got the right voice for him. I think he got to be like a British writer, if he is. Even I believe he is part of that Brit invasion, actually, Peter Milligan, yeah, from back in the day. Like with the Grant Morrisons and all that came over, and just people like Garth Ennis and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's got the right voice for this character, and and like I mentioned, the art is on point. All really good artists on this book, so just another good volume. Definitely check it out if you've yet to ever do so. These Hellblazer series paperbacks. All right, next up we got The Weatherman Vol.2. This is an Image book. This is written by Jody LaHuppe and art by Nathan Fox. I don't know if I talked about the first volume on here before, but I really enjoyed the first volume of this too, and this is just continued to be a very fun sci-fi kind of thriller book with amazing art by Nathan Fox. I really ended up enjoying the second volume as well. It was a little bothersome at times, only because of what's actually going on in the world right now currently with this whole coronavirus thing. And in this, there is a virus that is spreading in this book. So, reading it just seemed very very weird at this moment in time. But I still ended up enjoying it. It didn't take away anything from my level of enjoyment of this story, but it just... being with all this crazy shit that's been going on right now in the world, it just, I guess it bothered me. I was just like, oh man, I can't even escape it in my comics now. I was just like, come on, like this is the reason this is an escape, not to, I don't want to read about viruses and this kind of stuff as well. But no, it's still very good. I like it. I think Nathan Fox's art, I've seen his art and other things over the years, and it's a lot looser than a lot of other artists, his style. But I feel in this he tightened up his pencils a little bit. Still a little loose at times, and which is great. Like, it's good. I've really come to like his art, but I think that it's dialed down a bit because I've seen other shit that looks. I don't want to say it's rushed art, but it's definitely, you know what I mean, like more. More loose. Loose is the word, like, than what it is here. And I think that it looks great. Like, this is probably some of the best Nathan Fox has looked, I think. So that's really a testament, and he's already a great artist, but I think that he's just knocking it out of the park with this particular series. So I hope it's selling well for them. By the end of this volume, it said volume 3. It said to be concluded, so I'm guessing the third volume of this book might be the last of it. This collects issues 7 to 12. No, sorry, it's Weatherman Vol.2, 1 to 6. So I guess the first volume was 1 to 6 of just a Weatherman, and then I think, when they resolicited with the issues, I think they called it Weatherman 2. or Volume 2 or whatever. So this is 1 to 6 of that. So yeah, so it's probably going to be one more mini-series like of 6 issues that will conclude this story if what they said at the end was the case. And if you've never checked this out, definitely check it out. It's kind of a cool science fiction story with great art, again, like I said, from Nathan Fox. And Jody LaHuppe, who I'm not really familiar with here, he wrote the Shirtless Bear Fighter book Image did, that it says on the back here of the paperback. I guess he was credited, he was the writer of that series. I remember when it came out, I remember hearing about it. It was more of like a comedy type book. I don't know if that's his only credit, but that's what they've kind of mentioned here on the back of this paperback. So I'm not really familiar with the writer, but I think he's doing a good job in this. It definitely has some funny moments amongst all like the crazy like thrill ride stuff that goes on in this title. So that's also enjoyable to see whenever you get like a little bit of levity in the characters. Like this Weatherman guy, basically, I don't know if I spoke about the first volume on this show, but basically there's a guy who Nathan Bright, who's a weatherman on Earth. He got swooped up and taken with like this kind of squad of like freedom fighter kind of type people, like people that are trying to solve this problem with this virus that's spreading, and the person who unleashed this virus on the human race and part of the galaxy, that people are dying out from it as a result, and that is causing all this mass havoc and chaos. And there's like another like unknown, like a group, I forgot what they're called, Sword. They're basically like this rogue group that's causing all the issues for like the human race, like, and they're now threatening to basically like wipe out whatever's left. And they're the ones that are there's like this other squad of people along with the government that's trying to fight back. And the people that have scooped up Nathan Bright, the weatherman from the first volume, that you continue to see them in the second volume as they go on and they're adventuring through the universe, is Nathan Bright used to be this guy who was like a terror, basically like this crazy terrorist who wiped out his memory and replaced it with this person who we now know as Nathan Bright, the weatherman. So like he wiped out his memory and like put himself out there and basically started off a new life. So every like thing that he knew, all the secrets and stuff, and the reason, like, and how to combat this virus and all this shit that he put into play, this terrorist, is basically on like a file somewhere that they were looking for now, and they need to insert it back into this Nathan Bright weatherman's brain in order for him to help them combat all this shit. And so it's just, so this whole time they've been had to bring him along with them and protect him, but he's like this wacky, stupid, like comical weatherman guy who's nothing like the terrorist who he actually used to be, because his whole memories were taken out of his head, and these other ones were implanted or whatever, right? So as a result, like, he doesn't have the skills or the knowledge that they would technically need, but they still have to bring him around and protect him because they do need him once they get that file to put back in his brain for him to help them as a result. So you got this guy who's very incompetent and kind of stupid and funny at times. That's like, like basically the comedy relief of the group as the weatherman. And he's always like eating a shitload, and you know what I mean? Like, he's just like, he's just there with them, and he's not really contributing that much. But, he surprises them every once in a while, including in this volume, and kind of steps up to the task. And there's a crazy reveal at the end of this volume, which I won't spoil, but going into the third volume, it should be very interesting to see how everything kind of unfolds and wraps up here for them. And then this virus is basically now it's I guess evolved, and now it's like there's all these like mutated people, like creatures that they ended up having to fight in this volume as a result of it. And they do encounter this guy's like memory bank like file in this that he used to be his him before, when he was the terrorist side of himself, this Nathan Bright. So, you know, and you'll find out what happens with that in this volume, and the whole crew of people that are with him are all got different kind of personalities. Some of them are badasses. Some of them are just, you know, very competent, like scientists and stuff like that. So it's got a good mix. It's definitely like a high sci-fi kind of romp, like adventure, kind of with some comedy and yeah, futuristic type setting, and yeah, the Weatherman character itself is just very, very fun to follow, and his place in all this, as well as like the dialogue is really witty and smart and well written. So it's really good series, and top all that off with, like I said, the great Nathan Fox art. So I'm trying to be vague about some of the occurrences that happened to them in this book, while still trying to give you an overview of kind of like you know, like how the story is a little bit. So yeah, definitely check it out. I highly recommend it, and with the next volume being the last one, I'm really looking forward to that. And last up, we got Gogor by Ken Gehring. This is also by Image Comics. When I saw this like originally come out in issues, it just looked interesting to me and different. And the cool thing about this is all Ken Gehring. Like, he does created, written, drawn, colored, and lettered by Ken Gehring. Like, he does it all in this book, and it's really great cartooning. Like, it's really fun. World building, really great cartooning that's done in this. Basically, Gogor is, and they drop you right into the action. I actually like this pull quote that's on the trade where it says, "I want everyone I know to read Ken Gehring's Gogor. It's Jim Henson, Hayao Miyazaki, Jeff Smith, and Jack Kirby all in one package." It definitely got the Jack Kirby reference to this. Like, it just felt like Commandi or something like that, like Last Boy on Earth type adventuring going on in this, with all like the weird characters and like world building and stuff like that. The cartooning as well. You know, I don't know about Jim Henson. I guess it could see it, but you know, Miyazaki with like the crazy fantasy world building stuff that goes on in those movies. Again, Jeff Smith, you could say the same thing in terms of like just the fantasy kind of and the cartooning aspect of it. So it's a good pull quote. I think it's definitely got the elements of those things that you might like, but the best thing I think it has going for it is that the book just drops you in the middle of all this. Like, this guy's getting chased, and he's like got like they basically this big like weasel type thing, like a mole or something, that he's like running around on at the start of this, and it's almost like it's like a horse, like a steed for him, but he's just like, it's like a big, I guess what would you call this thing? He called it a flying shrew in this. So yeah, it's just and like, you know, then you got all these talking animals in this as well. There's like a reptilian, like assassin in this, and then you have like talking frogs and like lizard type people, and like a whole town of like different like animals that talk. You know, some prehistoric type creatures for sure. And then again, like the start, you see him being chased by these guardsmen, and you find out as you go on that these guardsmen basically invaded his island of Academia, right? It's called Academia, and he's actually a student there, so you know what I mean. You get the idea of why they would call it that, and I guess it's like some place where all these people get trained and they get schooled on things, on like the arts or the world itself and all this kind of stuff, and I guess he's like again, the Commandi thing with the Jack Kirby makes a lot of sense the more I talk about this as well too. Like, he was like, I guess, an orphan, like, and he like the professors there and stuff, they actually, like, when he was found when he was young there, they like took it upon themselves to raise this kid, and he kind of got raised there as like a farmer or something with like these shrews and stuff like that, and he was trained and taught everything that he knows from them. And then these like basically like the government, like I guess these bad government type people, they just go there and they try to claim his land all of a sudden, and then they're like, how can you do this? And they're after this ancient scroll that they have. So his professor ends up giving him this ancient scroll to run off with, and then basically at the start of the book, you get dropped in on the action of him running off with this ancient scroll on top of the shrew. He's getting chased by these guys that are riding beetles, and got these suits on, and they're like the government dudes that are basically the bad guys in this situation, and they came there and tried to take over their land, but it was just to obtain the scroll, essentially, which you find out as you go on. And then he has to jump from like one island, like floating island landmass, to another with the flying shrew, and he actually pulls it off at the start. And then it kind of it pans away, and you see a whole page of like a whole circular thing of like different land masses that are just floating in the air. And then you see that all of them, I guess, they don't connect, but they're all in like a circle in the air, and like that's what's left of the world now. And like so each actual island that's floating there is its own actual place, like in this world now in the future. So it's just very interesting. And then from there you kind of get into more depth of the world building continues as you go on each issue. And my one thing I will say I was disappointed in this book is it doesn't say volume 1 on it anywhere. By the end of it, there's so much left to be unsaid and explored, and I'm gonna have to look into this and look online, but I have a really bad feeling that this series didn't get the audience that he was looking for, and they may have been canceled, or it may be one of those things where, again, it didn't turn much of a profit, and the way he ended it is an ending of sorts by the end of this, even though it kind of, they've went on to the other stretch of their journey by the end of this, and you don't really know what had happened, but just there was so much more that he could have done with this, and so much more left unsaid that I really hope that this returns. I don't know if they're going to change the second name of the other miniseries, or maybe just didn't number it because he felt like it might be a long time till the next volume. I don't know. I need to look online and find out what's going on with this. Yeah, because this Ken Garing guy was the guy who worked on that Planetoid series from Image, which I've never read it, but I've heard some people really enjoy it. But again, the cartooning and the funness of this adventuring kind of like fantasy world. And the reason it's called Gogor is he finds out the ancient scroll is there was something in it where it's a seed and you plant it and you say like the incantation, like the words on the scroll itself, and from the ground this ancient creature, this thing called Gogor, actually gets resurrected from the actual grass, and he's like made up of like mud and grass and like the earth itself, it seems like, and he's just like a big lumbering barbarian like looking like creature, and he's supposed to, whoever resurrects him is supposed to follow Gogor, and he will protect you on his journey, but you have to follow him and allow him to do what he has to do, and like once a day he needs to like disintegrate back into the ground to basically regenerate like his body, right, and like reform, and then from there like he'll come back up out of the ground and he'll be ready to go again. It's almost like he looks like mossy and stuff like that, almost like a swamp thing, but he's more I don't know. He looks different. He's not like all made of the land and stuff, but in a way he kind of is. But yeah, so it's just really imaginative, very fun cartooning, as well as world building stuff going on in this. Fun cast of characters. They run into lots of different problems along the way. It's definitely feels like, a young kid going out there on his first kind of quest type of story, almost like Lord of the Ring-ish kind of type thing, like The Hobbit. Essentially, he has to follow this Gogor guy around through this world, and he doesn't really know like. He's trying to help his people, but at the same time, this Gogor has other intentions of things that he needs to succeed in doing, and he has to aid him in that quest. But at the same time, like he feels that he's getting farther and farther away from like his objective in this whole situation of trying to help his people. So he's always battling with that. I really hope there's more of this. This was a treat of a find, something I don't think I've heard many people talk about, but it was a fun little book. Definitely check it out, Gogor. It's by Image Comics, and it's $16.99 retail. It collects issues 1 to 5 of this series. But I really hope there's more, because this was like a nice little gem of a book that I just caught my eye. I really liked the cartooning, so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to check this out, and it didn't disappoint. So definitely check it out. It was a hell of a lot of fun. All right, guys, so that'll do it for today. I'll see you guys next time. I'll be coming out with one more episodes of the late tapes, along with our regular episode next week after this airs, of us being back on track. All right, guys, thanks a lot. See you next time.